Hey everybody, welcome to AP Computer Science A. I'm Jill Westerlund from Hoover, Alabama.
And I am Rob Schultz from Bellbrook, Ohio, and welcome to AP Computer Science A Live. As you can see, we've added some pins to our map. We have a couple that we've added in India. We've got, there's one that I think is hidden behind my
Yes,
little window here up in
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. We've got South Korea, and we've got a couple in China. And we've added some more within the US, it looks like, too. So welcome to everybody that's joining us in our little virtual classroom here. As always, we want to kind of share with you what we know about the exam. As we learn more about the exam, we'll make some updates. But just to kind of briefly summarize for those that may not have been with us before to catch this, the exam this year is going to be 2 questions. One of them is going to focus on arrays and array lists. It will be a bigger question than the other. It'll have 25 minutes, or you'll have 25 minutes, and it'll count for 65% of your score. The second one will be a little smaller. You'll have 15 minutes. It will involve methods and control structures, and it will count as 35% of your score. The exam date is May 15th, 4:00 p.m., and everyone in the world, regardless of your time zone, will take the exam at the exact same time. So if you are one of our international viewers, make sure you check your time zone. It could be a late night or an early morning for you. The makeup date, if you have an extreme extenuating circumstance that you can justify, you are able to apply to take the exam on the makeup date, which is June 3rd, and that's 2:00 Eastern time. So for any additional information about the exam, please make sure you check AP Central, go to AP Central, and then click the Coronavirus Updates tab. Okay, this week in our CSA exam review, this is ArrayList week. We've done Array week and we've done String week. Well, this week is ArrayList week. So I know we've already done a couple lessons early on about just kind of an introduction to array lists as we were kind of prepping for some other things, but we will be referring back to those, but we're going to go on and we're going to look at some of the specifics. We're going to look at searching, sorting, developing some algorithms. And is it safe, Mrs. Westerlund, for me to share that that we're going to do a game theme this week?
Yes, it's
So we're
all
going to
fun
try
and
and set it
games
up.
this
Yeah.
week.
We're going to try and set it up so that every lab we do is game related. Okay, so we'll be looking at how to do card games and some other cool things. So hopefully you'll stick with us through the week. As far as our review schedule, and I love Mrs. Westerlund's analogy here. If you think of Java as the entire Pacific Ocean, you know, there are a lot of things out there with Java that we don't even come to in this class. So the AP subset that we refer to is like someone scooping up an Olympic-sized swimming pool of the Pacific Ocean and dropping it into a pool so that now we have our little pool of Pacific Ocean water, and that's our Java water. So as we start trying to prep for the assessment, you can almost think of the different topics as lanes. And this week we are in the array list lane. And just like water is kind of fluid, it flows from lane to lane, there's going to be some overlap. There are going to be things that we do this week that involve arrays and array lists. Maybe you might see strings pop up from time to time, and the methods and control structure stuff. But the main focus of this week is array list and array list review. Hopefully everyone is taking notes. Mrs. Westerlund is giving some amazing examples of note-taking and trying to model good note-taking skills. So we know that the exam is going to be set so that you can either handwrite your code or you can use an IDE or Notepad or Google Docs. I mean, whatever, if you would like to type your code. But again, get in the habit of handwriting some code primarily, and then implementing it second to test it. Okay, and make sure you're taking good notes. For our warm up, we wanted to talk just briefly about parameters and what parameters are versus what arguments are. So this is kind of, we felt this was an important little mini lesson to throw in at this point. Am I taking this one?
You want to?
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
So as we talk about parameters, sorry about that, we didn't choreograph very well. As we talk about parameters, there are 2 types of parameters. And I think this was one of our topics that we looked at during maybe our first week. I don't know. We've been doing this long enough now that seems like forever ago. But there are 2 different types of parameters. We talked about the fact that we have a client object and we have a server object, and the client object is what tells the server object what to do. So as we think about formal parameters versus actual parameters, the formal parameters are in a class where we are defining the specific the formal declaration of what those parameters are going to be. For example, I might have a method that I'm declaring and I specify in parentheses that I need a string X. Well, I'm formally declaring that I need a string. The actual parameters are going to be in the client when I call that method and I say that I want to pass in the string Bo or the string JJ. And I always do this with my students. I'm not trying to be cool and do air quotes. I'm specifying that that's a string with a little double quotes. So anytime that my students see this, it means that we're specifying that it's a string, a literal string value. That's our actual parameter. Every parameter is enclosed in parentheses. And every program statement enclosed in parentheses is not a formal or actual parameter. For example, we have parentheses behind for loops. Okay, we have parentheses that go with if statements for our Boolean condition. We have parentheses within certain algorithms that give us order of operations. Okay, so don't automatically assume that anything you see in parentheses is a parameter. That's not necessarily the case. Constructor headers and method headers contain parameters. Okay. Constructor calls and method calls also contain parameters, and that's the difference between our formal parameters and our actual parameters.
Yeah, and as you can see, this is one of 7. We hope that you will watch this as many times as you need to really get, there's a lot of meat on all these slides 1 through 7. So slide number 2 is just about constructor formal parameters. The constructor header that you see, and you're going to see some of those today, and I think there's an example on some of these slides. Those declare our formal parameters. Those also form the first local variable, and here is an example from some of the code that you're going to see today. There's a constructor for the candy class that will let us make candy objects. Each candy object is going to have a string, an int, and a Boolean, and that is its constructor header.
Okay, so if we think of the candy class as the server, then what's the name of the class that goes with this one? The candy tester?
It could be.
Okay,
I think I called it candy jar, but yeah.
Candy jar. There we go. Okay, so the candy jar that we're going to look at in a second is the client. And in the client, so the actual parameters, when we call the constructor, that's where we put the actual parameters. So the call of the constructor would go in our candy jar. Okay, so the example would be in the candy jar class. So inside the main method or some method that's running that's gonna create a candy item, we have a call to candy, and the object name is going to be item O. We specify new, so we're calling the constructor, and notice now we're putting in actual literal values. We've got airheads, our quote, we've got 300, and we've got true. So in the actual class, the formal parameter name becomes airheads, the formal parameter calories becomes the actual value 300, and the formal parameter is sour becomes the actual value true.
Right, so now let's look at methods. Similarly, a method contains parameters, and when the method is declared, those are formal parameters, similar structure. Here's a method that you're going to see in some code that I've given y'all today for a linear search of our candy jar of candy, and we're going to search for a string. So if you notice, and I think I gave you some arrows, this is a Boolean type method. The name of the method is linear search. Here is the array that we want to search over, and we're searching for a word that I'm going to put in, whatever that word might be. Maybe I want to search for, Reese's or Twix or Snickers, or I want to see what's in the candy jar. So now let's look at method actuals.
Okay, so again, back over to the client, when we have a method call, the call of the method contains the actual parameters. So actual parameters are values being assigned to the formal parameters when the method's invoked. So in our client object, when we call the linear search method, we're passing in the candy jar array list, and then we're passing in the string pixie sticks as the candy that we're looking for, as the string that we're looking for. And that linear search, by the way, we're going to see almost an exact duplicate of that, but with different wording when we do when we start playing with cards tomorrow. We're going to do actually when we do I think it's Crazy Eights on Friday. There's a linear search in that because we have to search a hand for a specific card. So we'll call, find card in hand, which is our linear search. We'll give it the deck that we're searching, and we'll give it the card that we're looking for. So we can use linear search in a lot of different ways. So during execution, the method linear search is invoked, searching the candy jar array list for the key name Pixie Sticks.
All right, slide 6. What if a parameter is empty? Because sometimes you remember you'll see sets of parentheses that are empty. And so we want to cover that. They don't always have things inside of them. In a constructor, if we just had candy, like public candy open close, then that means that there are going to be default values assigned. Sometimes people make this and they make a default constructor. All right. In a method, it can mean a lot of different things. And this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list. It's meant to just be a big umbrella to help you get some context, because we've gotten some feedback from students who are like, help us understand parameters. Sometimes we see nothing in empty parentheses if there are no inputs into a method. If in the case of an array list, and I'm going to talk to you about this today, dynamic sizing, when you construct an array list, if you leave the parameters empty, it means we can make that list as large or small as we want it to be. And then sometimes there's just no information needed in addition for the method to do its job. And you see that a little bit on the Java quick reference. Like I think size is an empty, if we call size for an array list, for example. So anyway, there are times that you can see that. All right. Last but not least.
Okay,
Here's your
so
summary. Yeah.
every parameter is enclosed in parentheses. Okay, if we're doing constructors or we're doing methods, whether we're doing method calls, constructor calls, we have to have parentheses regardless of whether it's the formal parameter or the actual parameter. Constructor and method parameters are local variables that receive a value from the client's call of that constructor method. So what that means is when we declare a variable as a formal parameter, we're basically declaring a variable, and the value that fills it comes from the call when the method's called. And these local parameters, these local variables parameters allow the client to supply needed information to the constructor or method, information that the constructor method needs to complete its job. Whenever this comes up in my class, I always refer back to the math class methods. Math.random is an example of one where there's no where there is no parameter inside the parentheses. But then something like math.square root, we have to give it a value so that that method can do what it's supposed to do. So those are some other examples. If we didn't have a parameter for the square root method, then we would just say find a square root, but we wouldn't be able to tell it what number we want to find the square root of.
Fabulous. I hope that's helpful. I hope that I feel like sometimes if someone writes in something, there's probably other people with the same need. So hopefully that's helpful. Today we're covering ArrayList, and our other part of our topic is linear search. And I've subtitled today ArrayList Extravaganza because I'm going to show you a bunch of different array lists that hopefully will inspire you. And I'm going to end with the one that we're going to spend a lot of time on this week. So our goal really is to inspire you to engage in some thoughtful array lists that you can practice coding with, practice writing with, use the Java quick reference with. We want you to spend some time in Java, and hopefully these things will inspire you. So on the way there, and I went through this a couple of weeks ago, all of these words might be different and new than the way that your day-to-day teacher talked. Client server is one vernacular. Class runner, class tester. I use the word tandem files in my room because there's two wheels on a bicycle and one wheel comes in front of the other. I know that a bicycle built for two is often called a tandem bicycle because there's two people on that bicycle and one of them sits in front of the other. So, whichever. It can look like a class file and a tester file, or you can combine it. We talked about this probably 3 weeks ago, What I want you to think about today, and the way I'm going to present today's various array list topics, is really think about it as a class file, which would be the server, and a tester or runner file that would be the client. And I want you to try to use that structure this week. It will be helpful to you if you build projects with us based on what we're going to present. If you work in JDoodle, you're going to have to go to the Advanced IDE button at the top and choose that, and then make all of your files connected in a project. And I made one of those for you today, so you'll see how that behaves. And if you use JGrasp, you can create a new project and put all the files that are related there. So, it can work either way, but you're going to have multiple files potentially with the things that we would love for y'all to do this week. So it'll be easier if you structure it that way. Okay, today you're going to need paper and pencil. Even if you normally don't have paper pencil, if you want to kind of think through what we're doing, it's going to be helpful for you to have something to write on. So if you're watching this in a recorded setting, you may want to pause. This is my attempt at the bottom right to make a pause button. And get you a paper and pencil. If you already have that, then fabulous. And while I'm setting up in just a second, you'll have time to grab paper and pencil. So I'm going to switch to the projector camera, and I'm going to walk you through some array list on paper and on physical. So, all right, let's see.
I've been looking forward to this. I love your unplugged lessons.
Well, I get excited about these. I started thinking about them last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, we can do this and we can do this. And okay, so what I've done with my paper, for those of you if you can't see, is I folded my paper in half with a crease. And that's because I kind of want to use the left side of the page to show you. So this would be a hyphen. I want to use, and I made this already, so I'm not going to rewrite this because you don't need to watch me write, but I'll put it here and let you kind of look at it. I want to use the left-hand side of the page to represent our class or our server. And it's a good idea to capitalize these. People expect that to be capitalized. Now, we're going to operate here in mine and Mr. Schultz's world with grace and mercy. Java does not care if you capitalize the name of your class, but there will be people who expect that, and you may have a college professor that is very particular about how things are. But if you're going to build a class upon which you build an array list, and do other things, it's expected that the name of that class will be capitalized. So, and we covered this before. This would be Unit 5 in the units of Computer Science A. Class have a heading, they have private instance variables, we have constructors, we have overloaded constructors, get, sets, and it's important to have a two-string method. And this has been covered in previous lessons, so if this is semi-new to you, you may want to go back and watch the lesson on 7.1 from a couple weeks ago. All right, today we're going to camp out over here with what are we going to do with these array lists that we make. This will be in the client. Some people call it a runner, some people call it a tester. You can call it, I have XYZ here. You can call it anything you want to. Like I say, Java does not care, but the reason that a lot of people call them runners and testers is to make that tandem connection that here's my class and here's the class runner, so that it's obvious when you look at the files that you have named that you see that they pair up. In this, we're going to be having an array list that we make, and we'll have system.out.print calls, we have method calls, and then down below, we have methods. Now, it might be as we go on during this week that you even have a third file over here, another .java with other things happening. Like we're going to talk to you about building a game with cards, and you would potentially maybe want to have another client where things are happening. And I think that's how I'm going to set mine up. So that's part of why I'll be helpful if these things live in a project. So you're going to want that. So that's the reason that we're folding the paper in half. So now I want to show you, first we're going to start, and I have kind of an order, and I got to watch my time. Okay, I want to show you 7 array lists in total. That's my goal. If I can talk fast, and it's hard to talk fast when you're from the South. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet, but I'm going to use this egg carton to represent my array. Now, you know that a couple weeks ago when we did just regular one-dimensional array, I used bottle caps. So here's my jar bottle caps. The reason that I'm not using bottle caps now is because we're going to have more information in these than the one-dimensional array held. And also, I want it to be different because an array list is different than a one-dimensional array. So the first array that I want to talk to you about making is an array of the days of the week. So here are my days of the week, starting with Sunday, which is the first day of the week, and then all the way out. So if I build an array list to hold my days of the week, there's a couple of things that are unique about these, and the reason that I use this for an example. First of all, you know that when I build my list, these days of the week are going to sit in these elements of the array. All right, so let's look at kind of how this works. So over here, remember that I got to get all my little stuff. I lost my sheet of paper. Goodness me. Need a personal assistant in here with me. Okay, so remember this side's our class and this side's our runner, tester, XYZ. When we're building an array of just words, we just want words in our array list, we can build that off of the string class that already exists in Java. So we don't have to do all that work of building a class because our array list is going to be of the string type. So what has to happen over here, and I know I have to switch to a not as thick marker because I write too big. First of all, and I don't know if I said this, I know you'll see it in the code that I've got for y'all. You have to import for any of these. You got to import java.util.ArrayList. And if you don't want to be that particular, you could import .wildcard, which would pick up ArrayList, but that's going to be necessary over here in your client. All right, so we have this array list that we want. I'm going to put it up here. How about that? And then I'll write down below it of all our days of the week. And there's a couple of things that are unique about it. First of all, we want to declare the list, and this was covered a couple of weeks ago. We want to tell Java that we want an array list of the string type. And since it's going to be days of the week, I've lost Thursday. So we want to name it something. I think in what I told y'all to do, I called it an array, and I know in my classroom, I call it an array of days, and that's really a long name. So you may just want to call it days when you make yours. That would be a better edit. And it's going to be a new array list. And this is going to be the same for everyone that you make this week. Not sting. Now, here's my point about these parameters here. If I leave that empty, it means that I can make my array list of days as large as I ever want to make it. But since I'm doing the 7 days of the week that are never going to change, I actually could put, for this particular array list, I could fill in here a 7. And that would make my array list a size of 7. You almost never see that. It's very uncommon and it's not necessary, but it could be done, and it works for this example. I wouldn't do it for any of the rest of the ones I'm showing you today, because we as a programmer always want the freedom to let our array list grow dynamically. That's the whole reason, so this would make it be non-dynamic in size. Got to spell that right. All right, so that's array number 1 was that one. I'm going to pour these out. And now I want to talk to you about array number 2, and I'm going to put it on the same sheet of paper because it also is not going to be built from a class that we create. So the second one that we want to make is I want to make an array of ints. And you remember what?
Can I jump in real quick?
Please.
Because I've noticed you doing the same thing that my students yell at me for doing. When I'm
What?
talking about array lists, I accidentally refer to them from time to time as arrays. So I just want to clarify to everybody that
But I
even though
mean
you
array
might hear
list.
one of us during ArrayList week talk about arrays, we're talking about array lists because you will catch me doing it too.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah, always substitute that word.
My students get mad at me all the time for that.
That's so funny. I guess
Yeah.
mine probably just are like, we can't help what she says. I'm not even going to tell her. There's no telling. Thank you. Okay, so I want ints in this array list. I want ints in this array list, and I can't put ints in an array list because ints are a primitive data type. So that brings in our friend, the wrapper class, which means I can have an array list in int. Spell this for me. Oh my gosh.
Integer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got an extra R in there. There you go.
T-E-G-E-R. There we go.
There you go.
Integer. So I can have an array list of integers. And if I wanted numbers with decimal places down here, I could have an array list of doubles. And notice that these are capitalized. So if you remember, those are capitalized, and this is a wrapper class. So what I want you to envision in your brain is that I took something, and I'm going to use these because I had been saving these because I thought they were handy. I'm going to take these containers and I'm going to take my integer. It was an int, but when I put it in here, I'm wrapping it to make it become an integer, and then it can go into the array list. So I have to take each of these, or Java's going to take them all. And because I told it that I wanted something of the integer type, it'll let me do that. So that's physically what Java's doing, is it's going to take all of my ints that were primitive and it's going to wrap them up and put them in there. So if I were going to do the same thing with doubles down here, it wouldn't be the same array list because it's going to have one type. I could stick my doubles in there and let them get wrapped into becoming the double type, and then they would be in there as well. So I wanted y'all to kind of see that, because when you make your array list of integers, it's going to look just like the string one. And this is where I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. So down here, I'm going to move these doubles out of the way because we're not interested in that right now. It would be the same thing, array list. And this is where if you write good code, you could do some copying and pasting. And I think I called this one in my room, I think I call it array of ints equals new, and I'm going to abbreviate array list integer. And I would not ever fill that in because with numbers, who knows how many we're ever going to want. Okay, so that's the first two that I wanted to show you and give you the concept of the wrapper class, making that into an official object capacity. Okay, so that's two down, 5 to go, guys. Okay, number 3 is my candy, and this is the one that I built for y'all as a sample. And what I made, I went around the house and gathered up candy that we have in our house, and put it all in a jar so that, and I'm not going to pour it out because it's irrelevant really what's in here. Some pixie sticks, some Easter candy, and some empty candy, and so forth. So, and your candy jar might be different than my candy jar. So what we would actually be doing, of course, is putting all these candy things, like this one's empty almost, into our array list. So you can kind of see the same thing happening there, but I'm not going to do all that with that because I've built this code for y'all to look at. So I'm going to bring back my little sample here. In the server class that is named candy, I decided that my candy would have a name, and you remember from the examples, it has a name and it has calories, and I wanted to know if it was sour or not because I don't like sour candy. My boys do, but of course I don't. I'm too old to like sour candy. That was a different generation. And then it has get name, get type, get calories, get is sour because I needed to use that over here in a method. And because my method is public, it'll let me use that over here in this other client class. So y'all will be able to see that code in JDoodle. You'll be able to see it maybe by the end of the hour if I talk fast enough. And I built a linear search to go with that one. So you can add your candy, change my candy. All right, so that's the candy class. All right, the next one I want to show you is hearkening back to a couple weeks ago. And part of what I want y'all to think about with these is not just building the array list, but I want you to think about the class that they live on. Because if you wanted something different from a class, you might have to go back and edit that class. So remember a couple weeks ago when we talked about arrays, I showed y'all the minifigures that I took out of my older son's room, and I think they're in a different order. I can't remember how I had it. I may have grabbed some different ones today. I know I had a lot of these last time. I don't think I had this guy. He's really cute with the cinnamon rolls. But anyway, so if you're into minifigures, you could build yourself an array of minifigures, array list of minifigures, and you can call it whatever you want to. But your array list that lives over here, if you made it out of minifigures, and I'm going to just call them my minis, equals new, and I'm going to abbreviate array list of minifigures. And again, don't fill that in because you want to have them as many as you want. I can only have variables for my minifigures that live over here in my minifigure class. So you got to think about what is it you want in terms of private instance variables. And if you wanted to do something like, let's say we wanted to search our minifigures to see if we have, a Santa, or we want to search and see if we have, I don't know, pizza delivery guy, or whatever they may be. I'm trying to think. One of these now is the computer girl or whatever. So if we want to search by something, we've got to have that as an attribute, because remember, your private instance variables are your attributes. So I want you to think about what you have around your house that you could use to be inspired to build an array list. So that's our minifigure one. Because the point of all this, y'all, is so that you can make methods to do things with them. And sometimes your methods are driven by the attributes that you created over in your class that they live on. All right, the next one. Okay, y'all are going to love this one. This is one I do in my classroom, and I gave you pictures for these. I don't have these from my classroom, so I had to place a little order the other last week, whenever I was thinking about these. So a lot of your teachers have given you rubber ducks for rubber duck debugging. So I thought it might inspire you if you made an array list of ducks. These happen to be superhero themed, and I don't know what all of them are because I just don't know. Like I know obviously that's Catwoman, and
Bat duck, and
this,
I see penguin duck.
yeah, and this is Wonder Woman because it has
Yeah.
the little head thing. So
Uh-huh.
there's 6 villains and there's 6 heroes. This is what the Riddler
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
Penguin, and I think that would be like Flash,
Yeah.
Superman. So anyway,
Those are
if
awesome.
you're if you have ducks from your teacher, then I would love for y'all to make, ode to your teacher, a rubber duck class, because see, here's the deal. If we want to put these ducks in an array list and I can put them up in here, they fit better than my other little stuff because their little tails can sit down in there. They behave. If I want to put them in an array list, I've got to over here, move them out of the way. I've got to have a rubber duck class, and this is definitely one that we do in my room. I've got to have a rubber duck class. I'm just going to put it like that they live on. So what private instance variables would I want for the ducks? Well, in the case of these ducks, I might want, name, I might want type, I may want, movie they were in. I don't know. I'm not really into all the Avenger and DC, and I don't even know all the names. I should stop talking. Um, but over here, I would have my list. And for today, we want to linear search it. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about sorting. So you have other algorithms you can apply to these lists that you make. So if your teacher gave you a duck, if ducks are something that rings your bell, then make yourself a rubber duck array list. All right, and I gave you pictures of these. And in my room, I have a picture of some ducks that are like fireman duck, policeman duck, and that's what we build one out of. So that's that. Let me find a place to stick them. Okay. Ooh, we're on 6 of 7. It's a miracle. Okay, number 6. This one I thought was timely to the situation that we're in, except for I'm thinking of my student Srija, who this will be a whole lot of work for nothing for sweet Srija. Okay, so the next one is going to be, and we're going to actually think through these next two in a little more detail. The next class is going to be, let me see what I called it, AP Exam 2020. That's going to be our class. And AP Exams 2020, like other AP exam years, have certain characteristics that would form our, and I'm going to write it over here sideways, our private instance variables. Your exam is going to have a course name, and your exam is going to have a date that your exam is given, and it's going to have a time. And I would recommend that you use military time, and I don't know what this is called in other places, but where you call like, I don't know.
Well, 1 p.m. would be like 1300.
1300, yeah. Like 3 p.m. is what, 1400, something like that. Or was that right? I don't remember. Use military time just because of the searching instance. And so you've got course, you've got date, you've got time. Another one that you could put on here is number of questions, and that could be like an int. And time could be an int, date could be a string, course could be a string. So those would be your private instance variables, and then you would have your normal get sets and toString down here, like I showed you on the purple sheet. And then over here, you build an array list of the AP exam 2020 type, and it would be my AP exams. And then you would do the same thing, that it's, an array list and open close parentheses. So, and then you would use .add, and you'll see that in my code in a little bit, to add in all of yours. So if you have several AP exams, this would be a good array list to build, and then you could sort it by time, you could sort it by date, and then by time. You could do all the things that you think about doing with a spreadsheet. You're just building your own spreadsheet off of your exam schedule. Now, if you only have one exam, then this wouldn't probably be worth your time to build. But if you have multiple, and I think a lot of you probably do, a lot of my kids are taking, 5, 6, 7 AP courses. So this will be a fun one to build. So that's that one. And now we're to the last one that I want to show you. And this is the one that we're going to come back to a number of times this week, maybe all week, and we hope that will inspire you. Little girl, all my life, really, my nanny, who's my great grandmother, played go fish with me probably daily, because she lived next door to my grandmother, and I was always at my grandmother's house. And so she played with cards that are called rook cards, that are different than playing cards. Like, these are playing cards here that have like clubs, hearts, what are they? Spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds. Rook cards are numbered 1 to 14. So they're just numeric 1 to 14. So it's a little bit easier for a child to play with. And they come in green, black, red, and yellow. and I'm not sure what these 10s are. It might mean how much they're worth, point value. I don't really know, but that's pointless. So we've thought about, and in my room, some years we build card games, and because I think the whole world of computer science has kids build blackjack, which there's nothing wrong with blackjack, except don't think you're going to go to Vegas and win tons of money playing blackjack, because they didn't build that off of mine and your money. But um, lots of people build blackjack, and so it's available very easily online for kids to pull and not build their own code, but to just turn in somebody else's code. It's less popular, I think, to use rook cards to build games from, but there are these games: Go Fish, Crazy Eights. Mr. Schultz has already like knocked that one out. What else are you doing? War?
See, we're doing War.
Yeah. Crazy Eights. I'm going
Crazy
to
Eights,
work on Go Fish.
Go Fish. So I think those are going to be the main 3 we do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, we could do others, there's we wouldn't want to get crazy and build like a canasta game, but you may have other games with your family that you could use to build to make something. I mean, you could obviously build solitaire on your own, but anyway, I wanted to show you these, and I want to talk about what you would need from the card class. So I'm just going to pull out that one, and you can already think in your head, where are we going with this? Well, if you had cards dealt to you, like, let's just say this was my hand, these cards right here were my hand. I would want to fan my cards out in my hand, and then I would probably want to group them. So this is part of what Mr. Schultz is going to do tomorrow, is how would I digitally sort these cards and then group them by either color or number or whichever way you want to. So, okay, so here we have this, and let's talk about what we need. Over here, we're going to have to build a card class. And what do our cards have? It's pretty simple. These cards have a color and they have a value. And you could call that a number. Color's going to need to be a string. Value's going to need to be an int. That's really the only two. Is that the only two that you did, Mr. Schultz? Did you just do two?
Yeah, that's it.
Private instance
Yep.
variables. That's all I did too. So two
Yep.
private instance variables. You're going to have a constructor. You only need one constructor because every card is going to have both a color and a value. If they don't have both of those things, they don't need to be a card in your deck. And then over here, you could call this card runner, card tester. I happen to call this deck when I built it earlier today. I built the deck class. And in my deck class, which is what y'all are going to do tomorrow, there happened to be, I think, 56, 57, I guess. I forgot. I had it count, but I don't remember what my code set told me. It has to be, let's see, there's 14 of each color, so 28 times 2, so it's 56. So there's 56 cards. Is that right? I think so.
57 because
56
there's one
cards
rook
in.
card.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
So you've
So
got 56
like
regular
a
color
wild
cards
card.
and then a rook card. Yeah.
So you're not going to want to build your deck today because you're not going to want to type in 57 add methods to your array list. Um, that's going to be a better process automated, and that's tomorrow's lesson. So I don't want you to do this one today, but I want you to do the others to kind of ramp yourself up to this one today. But I wanted to present it to you so that you would kind of know what the cards look like and what you're doing. But we want to inspire you to practice on that. So I'm going to switch to code. Yeah, go ahead.
I just happened to notice the time we're at our 2-minute warning.
Oh my
We've got about 2 minutes
gosh.
left. The day has flown by.
Okay, well, I don't have time really. Let me see if I can pop over to show y'all. Let me see where we are. I don't know where we are. Let's look. Okay, we don't need to, we've already done that. Can you see my slides now?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll talk really fast. Check for here's the code in JDoodle for the candy jar. I want you to think about using two. Sequential search is the same thing as linear search, and that's what I built for you. And your tip of the day is to learn more about parameters by comparing them to arguments. Do you have anything to add to this one?
No, not really. I mean, that
Okay.
pretty much spells it out. Yeah.
There's a subtle difference.
Uh-huh.
Y'all are using both of them when you code. You just are not thinking necessarily about the two of them. And here is your homework. I want you to create array list for the days, the ints, one of the other three, and the exam schedule. What do you think about that?
I
About
think it
right.
looks great. Yeah.
Okay, about right. Okay.
Mhm.
And then tomorrow we're going to be doing cards. And here's the links. And now take it away.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Here is our latest CSA show and share. We have a kitty and some dogs. We've got Sparky from I'm not sure how to pronounce that in
Yeah,
California.
maybe Palencia. I don't know.
Plencia. Yeah. We've got Ivan from Arlington, or from Ivan in Arlington, Virginia, and from Ronit in Marietta, Georgia, and from Sarah in Okemos, Michigan. So
Yeah, Bo used to like carrots too. I thought that was so cute how she added that.
JJ loves carrots. Yeah,
Isn't that
JJ
funny?
loves carrots. I don't know what it is about carrots. As always, please make sure you're letting College Board know the clock is kind of ticking down for us as far as how much time you have left to notify College Board if by some chance you're having some kind of a technical issue. If you don't have access to the internet or to a device, eventually we'll hit a point where it will be too late to let College Board know. So please, if you are in that situation, go to cb.org/tech and let College Board know that you need some assistance with either internet or device access. And that
That's
was
all,
amazing.
folks.
That was
Was it good?
amazing.
I
I
feel like
got
I don't know. I hope it was fine. If not, we'll pick it up tomorrow.
I was so engrossed in what you were doing with all of the unplugged stuff that I forgot to do my job and watch the time. So I
That's
apologize that I
okay.
had to rush you there at the end.
That's
But
all
yeah,
right.
it was
I think we
phenomenal.
got it all
Yeah,
in. So
good.
you're ready to build a card deck and hopefully tomorrow and then build some games.
Definitely. Tomorrow we will look at creating an array list of cards to make a full deck, and we will talk about how you shuffle the deck and how you deal cards into multiple hands, and we will sort hands and all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you check in with us tomorrow too.
Thanks for joining us today.
Everybody have a great day.